Hi everyone, hope everyone's doing well out there. I have more information that is tying Venus to a date, which I didn't know she was connected to. It's actually Pi Day, which you guys all know in 2025 we have that special blood moon at 322, the skull and bone number, on Pi Day. And that's Einstein's birthday, and also the blood moon is on Zavijava, the ascension star that Einstein actually calculated the speed of light from, right? So we know that it's infinity pi, and Trump has given us symbolism for the infinity hand. But he also had this snake symbolism, and it's so amazing that I found the Egyptian mythology that's tied to Pi Day, and it's all to do with the snake. Okay, so I want to go into that. It's all tied to Venus. And I also found out where the Lord of the Rings, the special ring that's in the Lord of the Ring trilogy, where that is in the sky. And that's really important, and that all ties to Venus. Okay, so we have more and more Venus symbolism. And I do believe that Pi Day, is what they're really pushing us towards, okay, to be paying attention to. So anyhow, let's get into it, and I'm going to show you how this is all connected also to 9/11. And what else is it connected to? It's also connected to the Fool's Day, April Fool's Day. And what else? I think that's about it for now. And there's some other symbolism, that some gematria was sent to me, and he's decoded a lot of stuff to do with Neptune and Venus. This is tying into Neptune as well. Okay, so we know we have this big Neptune-Jupiter conjunction coming up in a few days on April 12th. And it came to me that this, we know that Zeus and Poseidon, were against each other when it came to Atlantis, but it's also tying into the two brothers of the Anunnaki. Okay, so I want to get into that as well. It's really mind-blowing how it's all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit together. Oh yes, and I forgot to mention there's a link to Norse mythology as well to Pi Day. And also a link to the Eye of Horus, the Eye of Ra. It's all tied to Pi Day. Okay, so we have the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction that has not happened on the tail of the whale or the right fish of Pisces for 166 years. I've been telling you guys this. So this is happening in a few days. So this is really, it just came to me the other day. I'm like, oh my God, this is the two Anunnaki brothers. This is Enlil and Enki. Now, the mythology is that Enki had taken a liking to humanity and gave us the ability to retain our memory so that we can awaken at this time when Earth is starting to try to upgrade to a higher consciousness, right? So some people that are awakening with that's why this awakening is happening. This is a sign, this is a scientific thing that's happening through the cosmos, and it's changing our consciousness, right? But it's because we were tweaked so that could happen. Now, Enlil, his brother, didn't want that to happen. He's more towards the AI, okay, to keeping humanity trapped in a cyborg. So there's this battle between nature or AI. And that's why you always go on about how AI is, there's a duality going on. But I know Zeus is the lord of this realm, but came to me, I'm like, oh my God, I bet you Zeus is Enlil, right? And that Enki is Neptune. So I was like, I better go see if I can find information on that. And sure enough, it's there that Enki is Neptune. Well, here they're calling him Poseidon, but he's also equivalent to Prometheus, and he's the guy that stole the fire from the gods and gave it to man, right? So he's like the helper of humanity. He's trying to help us get free. That's who Enki is. On Pi Day at 322, when this blood moon's happening, Enki and Neptune are almost in conjunction, right? And Saturn's there and the sun's there. Osiris is there too. Okay, so there's a lot going on at the tail of the whale, right? On this right-hand fish, which is really important. this is the important fish, is Christ consciousness. And Neptune would represent Christ consciousness as well. He's Enki, which is the Christ within us that wants to become free of this realm. Now, you never hear of Enlil being Jupiter, but they do mention him as the great mountain, the king of the foreign lands, the raging storm, the wild bull, the merchant. In Mesopotamia, envisioned him as a creator, a father, a king, and the supreme lord of the universe. So, which is like the Lord, right? So, yeah, and he's also ties to the east wind and the north wind. He's also tied to the word Bel, meaning Lord. So even like, I wonder if Baal, Bel, Baal, it's kind of the same. And the synchronization of Enlil, Marduk, and the dying god of Dumazid. And here they're telling us about the flood, but then they're also telling us it's not going to happen. So in the later Akkadian version of the flood story recorded in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Enlil actually causes the flood, seeking to annihilate every living thing on Earth because the humans, who are vastly overpopulated, make too much noise and prevent him from sleeping. In this version of the story, the hero is Unaptishum, who is basically the same symbolism as Noah. He had to create the preserver boat for Enki, but it's the same, it's kind of representing the same story of Noah. And he's also trying to search for immortality, right? The Gilgamesh, and Unaptishum is his ancestor. So who is warned ahead of time by the Babylonian equivalent to Enki, that the flood is coming. So Enki warns them. The flood lasts for 7 days. When it ends, Ishtar, which is like Venus, who had mourned the destruction of humanity, promises Unaptishum that Enlil will never cause a flood again. So there's no more flood, see? So this is what they're saying. When Enlil sees that Unaptishum and his family have survived, he is outraged. But his son, Ninurta, speaks up in favor of humanity, arguing that instead of causing floods, Enlil should simply ensure that humans never become overpopulated by reducing their numbers using wild animals and famines. So, like food shortages. Enlil goes into the boat. Unaptishum and his wife bow before him, and Lil, now appeased, grants Unaptishum immortality as reward for his loyalty to the gods. So Unaptishum ended up becoming immortal because he made this boat, like the Noah's Ark, to save the seed of humanity. But Gilgamesh was trying to become immortal, and he tried to get him to defy sleep, but Gilgamesh couldn't do that. And then he gave him a plant, and that didn't help. So anyhow, Gilgamesh ended up giving up on trying to become immortal. But it all ties into the city of Uruk. So again, the UR showing up again. Having abandoned hope for either immortality or renewed youth. He basically abandoned it. So he never became the immortal soul. And this is really interesting about Abraham, the common patriarch of the three Abrahamic religions, is often put forward as having been born in Ur around the time, although estimated dates range from 2300 BC until 1960 BC. So Ur, and the identification of Ur with the Ur of the Chaldees in the Hebrew Bible is not entirely certain. So the fall of Ur. So yeah, I just find it weird that everything is Ur, right? So same thing as even with the jab. It's a pseudo-uridine that they swapped out. So it's always the Ur. And it's like it's almost like a play on words, like you are or I am, right? So it's like okay, it's just weird. Or is it urine? You know, it's just bizarre. It's always pops up, the Ur. And I just finished watching Westworld, and I'm going to do a whole video on that. But what's so funny is that in part of the show, the guy that's drunk, like he's kind of like Dionysus, he gets drunk and he ends up urinating all over the world, you know, in a miniature version, like a miniature version of the world. It's like almost like they're gods and they're urinating all over the world. So I'm just like, okay, there's the symbolism right in Westworld. It's always about the urine. So this is where it all ties in to the snake. Okay, so this is the Wadjet. Okay, so the Wadjet is Egyptian mythology Wadjet, or the green one. There's also different spellings there, and she has different names, but she's the green one. And going forth of the Wadjet was celebrated on December 25th, so, you know, Christmas, and with chants and songs. An annual festival held in the city celebrated Wadjet on April 21st. Other important dates for the special worship of her was June 21st. So that would be, again, the solstice, the summer solstice. And then on March 14th, Pi Day. She was also assigned the 5th hour of the 5th day of the moon. Okay, and I'm thinking that's probably the 5th phase of the moon, not the 5th day, because, you know, it's just weird. I'm just like, oh my God, so it's Christmas, the summer solstice, you know, Christmas, it's like, you know, close to the winter solstice, and then April 21st, and then Pi Day. So I'm like, are you kidding me? Okay, so you got to check out, you know, what the symbolism of this goddess. It's really Venus. Okay, she's Venus, the serpent goddess of justice, time, heaven, and hell. Okay, so there you go. It's like Libra is ruled by Venus, justice, right? Time, heaven, and hell. She decides which way you go. And it's really fascinating. There's two sides to her. There's a dark side and a light side. So when they're saying the 5th day and the 5th hour, this is also tying into Venus, because Venus represents Pent 5, right? The 5-pointed star, the pentagon, the pentagram. And so the 5th stage of the moon, or the 5th phase, would be the full moon, which is when the blood moon happens, is on a full moon. So not only is she represented by the serpent, she's also represented by the Eye of Horus, you know, the all-seeing eye. Okay, so this is getting crazy. It's all tying to Pi Day. So these protective symbols of death and life were referred to the two ladies. Indeed, Nekabet, okay, it says victim misses the world as the vulture of death, but simultaneously Wedget rejuvenates the world as the serpent of life. So it's like Venus represents death and light, because she really decides which way you go, right? She weighs your heart against a feather, basically Isis, which is Venus. The iconography is symbolic of breathing out and in of the universe. Nekabet delivers attacks and death, and Wadjet resurrects with protection and rebirth. These goddesses describe how contrary forces can be expressed within us. In reality, extremes actually give rise to each other. So the famous riddle of the Ouroboros deals with the relationship between perceived opposites. Name the two sisters. One gives birth to the other, who in turn gives birth to the first. So this is crazy, but this is really what symbolizes in the West world. Okay, it comes down to the dark and light at the last season, and this is really about what's happening in the world right now. It's the battle between the dark and the light. And yes, the light is rebirth, but the dark has its purpose too. It has to there has to be a death for rebirth. So this is why this realm is collapsing, because this is all part of the process. If you answer Nekbet and Wedget, then a most curious thing happens. You transcend the opposites. This is the intent of the riddle. It reminds us to honor the eternal life cycle or eternal cycle of corruption and rejuvenation within ourselves. So the two goddesses, known for their devouring and sustaining traits, must be identified within us as the sisters they truly are. This sacred process leads in one direction, immortality. Eventually, we accept death and rebirth as a simultaneous event. So there you go. That's the real meaning of the Ouroboros. So it's about, devouring yourself. It's the eternal life. But it's to do with these two aspects of Venus, right? When she's dark and when she's light. And that's when she's Lucifer, or she's the evening star, right? So there's the two aspects of her, the morning and the evening star. So here they're saying she is worshipped at the temple of Wedget, which was referred to by the name Pi Dep. So this is where I get the pi. The pi is kind of tying into the town name now. So yeah, so they're saying Pi Dep was the city which the two distinct divisions, in one of which Wadjet, Isis, was worshipped, and the other Horus. And Horus dwelled in Pi, and Wadjet in the Dep. Okay, so we've got the all-seeing eye of Horus and Isis, which is Venus, and they split these two towns. So it's like, oh wow, it's just the all-seeing eye has the two aspects of the moon eye or the sun eye, right? So, and it explains in here, I'll get to it, how they switched it from the moon eye to the sun eye. The moon eye is your left eye, and that rules your right side of your brain, which is intuition. It's all feminine. And then the right eye is masculine, which is ruling the left side of your brain, which is masculine, which rules logic. So here they're saying, yeah, we got the Pi Day, all the dates, and then the papyrus, Lower Egypt, and then her name means papyrus colored one, as wajid in the ancient Egyptian word for the color green. Okay, but also the hieroglyphs differ from those of the green crown to the red crown. So the green and red, so it's all tying into the Christmas colors, right? And that's the days that she was celebrated. So they're saying that sometimes she's represented with a green crown and a red crown, and other times it's blue and green. It is also the name of the well-known Eye of the Moon. So it was originally the moon eye, which later became the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra. An additional sun deity arose. Indeed, in later times, she was often depicted simply as a woman with a snake's head, or a woman wearing the uraeus. The uraeus is, so there's the word ur again, right? But now it's referring to a snake. The uraeus originally had been her body alone, which wrapped around or was coiled upon the head of the pharaoh or another deity. So yeah, and she's also known as the papyrus, the colored one. It is thought to be the first image that shows a snake entwined around a staff symbol. This is a sacred image that appeared repeatedly in later images and myths of cultures surrounding the Mediterranean Sea, called the caduceus, which may have had separate origins. So even the caduceus is kind of tied to it. An interpretation of the Milky Way was that it was the primal snake. That's an interesting concept. So the Milky Way is the primal snake. and that's, the Ouroboros. Okay, so the Wadjet, the protector of Egypt. In this interpretation, she was closely associated with Hathor and the other deities among the various aspects of the great mother goddess, including Mut and Nanunet. The association with Hathor brought her son Horus into association also. The culture of Ra absorbed most of Horus's traits and included the protective eye of Wadjet that has shown her association with Hathor. When identified as the protector of Ra, who was also the sun deity associated with heat and fire, she was sometimes said to be able to send fire onto those who might attack, just as a cobra spits poison in the eyes of its enemy. In this role, she is called the Lady of Flame. There's also the lion is tied to it. In the role, since Bast was a lioness, Wadjet Bast was often depicted with a lioness head. So there you get the lion in there too. It's amazing. So in the sky, they're saying to this day, she rises parallel to the plane of the Milky Way and about 20 degrees to the north. So this is Hydra. They're saying going forth with Wadjet on December 25th because it's acknowledged the serpent in the sky who meanders across 100 degrees of the heavens as the goddess of rebirth. So Hydra, she's not, evil. It's Wadjet. So this is the rejuvenation of humanity, basically. And here they're showing here the Nazat Mons, a mountain on Venus. Okay, so the actual planet Venus, there's a mountain there, is named Nazat, an Egyptian winged serpent goddess. There you go. So this is according to Elizabeth Goldsmith, the Greek name of Nazis was Buto. Buto is also another name for Wadjet. Okay, I didn't mention that, but it was in one of the slides there. So the uraeus, here's one of the original ornaments of it. It's, to me, it looks like an S. And, I had listened to somebody decoding the Superman symbol, and they're like, it's a serpent. And I'm like, oh my God, it is. And I think it's this serpent because, you see it exactly there. You just put it on the side, it's an S. Uraeus, it almost sounds like you ray us, like you're raying us. The sun is raying us, and this is what the activation is coming from the sun. But they're saying here it's supreme power worn on the headdress. So it's related to power, but in the Greek, it's Urias. So that's where you get the Ouroboros. Now, Cleopatra was also killed by a cobra, right? It was like and it was, in a basket of figs. And that's how she died, by a snake bite. And Naga, it means the cobra. So I think this is where the word Negro Negro comes from, is the Naga, is the cobra. So it's also Naja Heiji, was first described by a Swedish zoologist. The genetic name Naja is a Latinization of the Sanskrit word Naga, meaning cobra. So the seraphim, which is the angelic seraphim found in the Hebrew Bible and later the Jewish, the Christian, and the Islamic traditions, are frequently associated with serpents and are thought to have derived from the concept of the uraeus. Multi-winged uraei amulets are well represented in Palestine. So the seraphim, Dan Winters says, they are psychokinetic women. That's where the Anunnaki were running from, because they were powerful women, and I guess they're intuitive. They can they're probably telepathic, but they've lost their ability to be psychokinetic. They've lost that ability. But Enki's mother they're both Enlil and Enki had the same father, but they had different mothers. And Enki's mother was a seraphim. This is what Dan Winters says when he's talking about the bloodlines of the Anunnaki. You will know the intrigue, the secrets, and the dangers that lie in every step through the dark corridors of the ancient tombs as you search for the stolen treasures of the pharaoh. But beware, the cobra goddess Wedget has guarded the noble kings and their treasures for over 3,000 years. She awaits your intrusion. This interpretation of the goddess holds true to the image we see of her throughout ancient history. So she guards the treasures. Now, they did show the blood moon symbolism in the Westworld show. And they also showed like eclipse, I thought, but I'll get into that in another video. But here I'm just showing you the total red, lunar eclipses, which are the blood moons. And we have a total, this year we have two. Okay, May 15th, they're saying 16th here, but it's May 15th, right at midnight, and then November 8th. And then we don't have another total until Pi Day, 2025. And then another one in 2026 on March 3rd, which is number 33. Now, I was listening to Barbara Marciniak, and she was saying, this is why I got kind of hooked onto, I was starting to think about Pi Day again, because she said the worst years are going to be 2022, 2023, and 2024. And then it's not over until 2008. But I was like, okay, so it's not over, because I think people are supposed to be like in, virtual reality hell for 3.5 years. So I'm like, okay, this is all linking it up to Pi Day. And she's saying, oh, it's going to be better, after 2024. So I'm like, okay, so this is interesting that that she's saying that. So this is why I've kind of started looking at Pi Day again. Now here's the eclipses and the blood moons on 2025. Okay, so we have a blood moon on March 14th, Pi Day. And then on March 29th, we have a solar eclipse. Okay, so that's interesting. And I want to kind of project this into kind of thinking it like there's like a resurrection from May 29th to April Fool's Day. Because I was listening to a Christian talking about the lunar calendars. Now, the lunar calendars, he said, really are 13 months, which is when I do a reading, I always, talk about Ophiuchus, the 13th constellation. It's the doorway. But originally, he said there was 13 months. They were lunar months, so 28 days, and 28 times 13 comes 364. It's missing one day, and he said that is the Fool's Day, April 1st, because that was New Year's Day, and that would be the rebirth of Christ when the spring is, right? Because we know this is all about spring. So the original New Year's was spring. And this he said, is like the resurrection of Christ. Okay, this is why it's, Easter's in the springtime. So I was just like, whoa. So, April 1st is tying into you being called a fool if you still celebrated New Year's on that day. And then the Fool card here was also showing up in Westworld. Okay, so there's a link to the Fool being to do with freedom in Westworld. Veneralia Day is an ancient Roman celebration of Venus that took place on the Calids of Aprilis. That is the 1st of April. Romulus, who's the founder of Rome, and legendary founder of Rome, considered that Venus to be the ancestor of Mars, to be his father. So the ancient calendar of Rome began on the month of Mars, followed by the month of Venus. So on this day, Venus was celebrated as Venus Vetacordia. Now, vet means green, so this is also tying into Wedget. Changer of hearts. Yeah, she changes your heart. And then it says vows for chastity, morality, beauty, and retribution. So Venus was pounded poppy with milk and honey. Oh my God. So so we've said this before, milk and honey is all tied to Venus, but the whole theme of Westworld is to do with milk. Okay, so I'm just like, whoa, this is getting nuts. So I think they're saying that people that celebrated, April 1st as the new year were considered to be fools. Okay, this is how April Fools came about. But I think it's all tied to the Fool card, and I think it's just, they hijacked it because they don't want you to know about that's the special day. That's the one day that is supposed to be the resurrection. It's for Christ. The day of Christ is that one day that's not in sync with the sun calendar, right? It's like the one extra day with the lunar calendar. So we have the blood moon on March 14th in 2025, and then on March 29th we have an eclipse right on the tail of the whale as well. And you'll see Neptune's there, Mercury's there, Saturn's there, Venus is there. Venus is almost getting into the circlet of Pisces. So I want to go into that and talk about what's going on with that. Her being in that circle is really, really esoteric and very, very relevant. And 3 days after March 29th would be April Fool's Day. So the Pisces mythology. So the Syrian goddess of love and fertility, Atargatis, is often portrayed as half woman and half fish. She is thought to be the origin of the Greek goddess Aphrodite and the Roman goddess Venus. According to Greek mythology, the fire-breathing monster, Typhoon, was about to devour Aphrodite, Venus, and her son Eos, the Roman Cupid, so basically Venus and Cupid, so that they turned into fish and jumped into the Euphrates River to make the great escape. Mother and son tied themselves together with a cord to make sure that they would not lose one another in the tumbling waters. I'd mentioned this before, but I just want you to really understand that what's happening, all tying into the calendar dates here, all tying into blood moons and eclipses, and Venus happens to be on her fish. Okay, it's like, what's the chances of that happening? She moves fast in the sky. It's like, whoa, this is really, really esoteric. And of course, Neptune rules Pisces, right, with Jupiter. So Pisces is the water sign. It is considered the most mystical inclined of all the signs and the last of the 12. Rules the 12th house. It represents the return of the great ocean from which life first evolved and where all the boundaries are dissolved. So it's a cleansing of the water, right? So this would be the second phase of alchemy where you get cleansed, right? So, which is called the albedo. The ruling planet of the personal chart, okay, this is talking about personal stuff. The most spiritual of all planets, mystic Neptune, rules imagination, dreams, ideals, and the whole psyche realm. The god of oceans, Neptune knows no boundaries and urges us to see beyond our day-to-day existence. It also governs magic, glamour, and the illusion. Its positioned at birth reveals the spiritual side of your nature and your psychic powers. Okay, and then, they're talking about the two fish and how it's all tied into Christ. So they're saying the two fish of Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, swim in different directions, but bound by a cord. El-Rishha, the cord, which is Pisces' leading star, marks the knot which tie the fish together, the nearest star to Aries. It was here that the conjunction between the two great planets, Jupiter and Saturn, occurred on 7 BC, which may have marked the birth of Christ and led the three magi south to Bethlehem. It's like, whoa! So it is all tied to Christ consciousness. Neptune, Pisces. It's definitely, really spiritual. And that's what's happening right now. We're in a spiritual, war going on here. But the whole goal is like, you can't fix this story. You can't take this story down. It's in our consciousness. And it's really about, do you want to find the door or not? It's all about the door. And this is what they're talking about in Westworld. Find the door, okay, to the other world. And you have to find the door. It's not about saving this realm. This realm is dying, and there has to be a rebirth of it. You don't want to fight it from dying. It's going to do that anyhow. With the magnetic poles moving toward the equator, there won't be any electricity, and the CMEs. It's all going to change everything. So all I'm saying is, yeah, there's a door. I really do believe there's a door. After watching Westworld, I really believe there's a door. So in Norse mythology, can we prove that this circlet of stars is indeed the representation of Draupnir? I think yes. The key to the proof are the 8 rings dropping out of Draupnir. This is the circlet, this is Pisces, the right fish, okay, where Venus is going to be in. If you look on the star map, there are indeed 8 stars visible with the naked eye, strung in a line between the star Al-Rishka and the circlet. That would be the knot. All of them have similar brightness. Therefore, a fascinating conclusion is possible. Okay, that Draupnir represents the 3 succeeding constellations of Taurus with the Pleiades, Aries and Pisces, all along the zodiac. So they're talking about, she's just talking about, this is Draupnir. So what is Draupnir? Draupnir is the ring that makes you invisible. The Norse mythology, Draupnir, the dripper, is the gold ring possessed by the god Odin and the ability to multiply itself. Every 9 night, 8 new rings drip from Draupnir, each one the same size and weight as the original. Okay, so they're not saying it makes you invisible, but of course in, they're saying this in the Lord of the Rings, that this ring is tied to, makes you invisible. This ring allows the wearer to teleport to any place of the 9 worlds, and a copy of equal power was once owned by Loki before it was destroyed by Freya. So so it's a teleportation device, okay? So this circlet, this ring that Venus is in, when all this is aligning in 2025, it's the door. It's the door, the teleportation device that Venus, love allows you to get out, right? You have to have your heart weighed. It's about changing your heart. It has to be in love frequency. So that's like, to me, it's like you're putting on the invisible ring of Draupnir. Yeah, and what is the invisible ring? It's a black hole. Okay, and this is also showing up in Westworld, this black hole. So Draupnir is represented as the card of Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. Yeah, and this is what the cards look like, the black hole. So here they're saying that the thread that hold the 2 fish together are known as the linon or the linoni, and also called the vinsla and the bond. So I'm wondering if that's where you get the James Bond from, right? The bond tying the 2 fish together, the mother and the son, Venus and Cupid. And then here, the V. Remember the show, The V? I don't know if you guys know that. It was way back in the 80s. And it was like these aliens came and were like, pretending to be good, but they weren't. Basically whole Anunnaki story. But the whole show was called the V series. And now I understand what the V is. It's, it's basically Pisces. So this is interesting. Di sent me this. Gematria affects news. So he's decoded a lot of stuff, but he doesn't really understand what it's all tying into. Okay, so why it's being done. So there are parallels with the other trident destruction rituals on November 11th. Okay, so this is really great that he's figured this out, that Neptune and Venus are in this seal and flag of Nagasaki. Well, Naga, we got the Naga again. Okay, so there's all the Neptune symbolism, and that's the pentagram. The 5 tridents are clustered together in the pentagon in the middle of the pentagram. So you see 9/11, how the wall was all like basically forks. So that's all Neptune forks, and then they also, took down the Pentagon. So they're using the symbolism of Neptune and Venus together, you see? So this is why I think it's so important to understand that Neptune's on the tail of the whale beside Venus, when all these blood moons and eclipses are happening in 2025. It's really, really important. Now, it's amazing what he's done here, okay? So Nagasaki were the twin bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Also, the nuclear bomb terminology, ground zero, which was applied to 9/11. And so guess what? Nagasaki as a Jesuit port of call, okay? And it was founded, it is noteworthy that Nagasaki has been a Jesuit port since 1549. But check this out. He did his homework, and Nagasaki was officially proclaimed a city on April 1st, April Fool's Day, on 1889. So you see what I'm saying? This is all tying in, like this is all aligning in the sky in 2025, all the symbolism of this. And someone else sent me this. They just put up these Neptune towers again at 9/11 at the World Trade Center. Okay, so it's like, whoa, this is getting crazy. It's everywhere. And then he's got here another trident involving the English soccer giants, Manchester United, was a destruction of the trident ritual at Manchester United. Have the trident in its team crest. So they had the trident. I don't even know what happened there. The destruction of the trident could be references to the ancient war. The trident is a symbol of the ancient Sumerian deities Anu, Asherah, and was inherited by Enki. Yeah, this was indicative of the Trinity, the Trident Trinity of Asherah, Anu, and the son Enki. The number 3 has a common in the trident destruction rituals. Enki is Ptah in ancient Kemet, so and Poseidon and Neptune and Rome. So yeah, this guy's done his homework. It's amazing how they've linked this symbolism everywhere. Okay, so we know it's super important, right? That's the whole thing of it. They're showing it to you so we can figure out, when the door is going to open. I'm convinced it's not, or to just make you, think that it's all, it's normal, whatever. It depends on which side of your reality you're on. But to me, it's like everything is so done in precision in this realm. It's all coded, everything's coded, and it's telling you a storyline, and you need to know your homework and your history to understand what it means, right? So for those that want to do the inner work and be willing to see the illusion of this realm, you find these treasures. And by finding these treasures, Rajat, who is, the keeper of the treasures, she lets you pass through the door. So they also have this all tying into the runic half months. Okay, so there's all these runes symbols, right, with Norse mythology. And so March 14th is the beginning of one of these half months, and it's called the Berkana. So, and then March 30th, which is just before April Fool's Day, It is the, how do you pronounce this? This is the Awaz, okay? And so I wanted to look at those. And then the one on April 28th ties into, it's called the Hagalaz. And this ties into the hook. And it's actually part of the Bluetooth symbol with the one of the Berkana. Between the two, it's the Bluetooth symbol. So here they're explaining how they use the H and the B for the Bluetooth to bind the ruin. They've created the two, and this is the hook. See, it's like one side is the hook, and then the Berkana is tying into the mother goddess again. So not only is Pi Day tied to Wadjet, it's also tying into Norse mythology, which stands for the birch tree. Now the birch tree ties into Venus because there's a certain birch tree that if you cut it, there's all these V's in it, and that represents the V of Venus or Pisces. Okay, so like the birch tree coming to life from a seed planted in the earth, the Berkana represents the new beginning and is also a powerful birth rune. Now the next rune that starts on March 30th would be this one that stands for horse and red and white. The red and white is all through the Westworld symbolism on a white horse as well. It's shown a few times. And this Awaz reminds us that in order for success, there must be natural flow in the task at hand. With this rune, to give us power as well as it making use of our good intentions, we can surely achieve such success. Okay, so task at hand. It's interesting they're using the word hand. I have a whole other knowledge all about the hand, and I'm not going to get into that today. But, the infinity hand, the hand ties to teleportation. And I'm going to teach you guys all the information I've learned about teleportation. So here's a little bit more meaning of the Berkana, the Pi Day. The birch tree was a symbol of fertility in quite a few different myths from the European folklore. Likewise, the shape of this ruin implies a stylus female form. The Berkana, also the Berkano, represents the universal idea of the goddess and the powerful bond between mother and child. A powerful sense of nurturing, protection, and support and creation are indicated by this ruin. All of these feminine mysteries are contained in the Berkana, as the traditional male mysteries are contained in the Uras, the Urigan, right? And as the Uras, the gender learning of the ruin does not necessarily mean that the ruin applies strictly to male or female persons, and can also apply to nurturing in the supportive male role. Okay, but we have, so this is the whole divine mother child. It's Venus, Cupid, Mary, Christ. It's the same symbolism. And this is all tying into Pi Day. Either a pregnancy or a new start in a personal life indicates here. Okay, and then the inverted meaning, growth is being stunted through a stubborn refusal to channel creativity or creative and healing forces. Learn to accept the rites of passage of life. Don't ignore them, or they will just cause you more pain than necessary. Berkana inverted can also signify friction within relationships or even betrayal. So you see, it's all to do with the rites of passage of life. That's what Pi Day is. That's Infinity Day. And this is about Wadjet again. She became a goddess of heat and fire, and this enhanced her role as a protector goddess. With her fierce powers, she could use not only poison, but flames against the enemy of the pharaoh. Along with her line to this power, she became connected to the Eye of Ra. It's interesting, it's poison, right? It's like, ooh, that's not good. And was thus also connected to the other goddesses who took this title. the Bas, the Tefnut, the Shemet, the Hathor, Isis, and her twin in duality, Nekbet. Along with this form, she took the form of the lioness, as did many of the other Eye of Ra goddesses. In this form, she wore the solar disk of Ra, linking her to the sun, with the uraeus, the rearing cobra, as her headdress. In the story of Horus and Set, when Horus is trying to find out and root the followers of Set, or root them out, Horus pursued them in the form of burning winged discs attended by both Nekbet and Widget as crowned snakes, one on each side of him. This too linked her to the pharaoh, as the Egyptians believed the pharaoh was the living Horus. She not only protected Horus in his fight, but she also protected the pharaoh from childhood until death. A protector she was, known as the August One, the Mighty One. That just friggin' blew my mind when I read that, because you guys know that I've been, that Freemason video I watched years ago saying that the whole Washington Triangle, in DC was aligned to the month of August. And I've been trying to figure out, is it Hathor, is it Hecate, It goes back to Widget, okay? And she's the protector of the child, the mighty one. Okay, this is what this is all about. But it's all linked to Pi Day. This is what's freaking me out. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's all linked to Pi Day. It's just amazing. Oh, and then in August in 2025, we have Neptune in conjunction with Saturn. Okay, the father of time, right? And Neptune is Christ. Okay, and that's happening on August 1st. So if they don't do anything in the spring, it'll definitely be August 1st, right? And this is also happening on the tail of the whale. So the whole 2025 is just like, whoa, unbelievable. And of course, the year 2025 is exactly 24 years after 9/11, and that was the year of the snake, the cobra, the naga, right? So the uraeus, so there you go. It's all linked. It's all linked together. It's one big friggin' story that's all tied together. So check this out. The eclipse, I didn't tell you before, March 29th, it's in conjunction with Horus. Not 100% conjunct, it's more happening, the full conjunction is in the V on April 4th, 44. Okay, so the number 44. So, but this is pretty cool. This eclipse is happening and Horus is right there, right? And Venus is there and Saturn, that's her father. Neptune is there. He's like, it's not showing right now because I have Horus pulled up. But, it's the Eye of Horus. Oh, and who showed us, MSN, they took a picture of Trump with the snake and the Eye of Horus showing the right eye. Okay, so yeah, this is what it's all about. And there's Mnemosyne in justice, so you're justifyingly getting your memory back. This is on Pi Day as well. And Sibella, or Cybele, she would be the mother side of Venus, right? And she's on Pollux, which is the ascended twin of the twins, and Mars is there, which is your I am, right? Or your death, because you're being ascended, you're going to go through death. Mars is there. Okay, so which rules the 8th house, right? With Pluto, your soul, right? Rules the 8th house of transformation. April 1st, we have the moon is with Uranus, so the moon is with heaven. It's a black moon, so it's like rebirth, okay, on April Fool's Day, the Fool card, and then you can see Neptune is there with Mercury. Mercury's your mind, right, and Venus is right in the circle now, okay, so, and then Horus would be there too. He's just not pulling up right now because I have Neptune pulled up. Yeah, so it's nuts what's happening on that tail of the whale at that time. is Enki's there. Also, Osiris is there, and then Horus is in conjunct with the sun. You know, it's just loaded. And of course, it all has to tie into Rome because Washington was called Rome before. And guess what? March 14th ties into Rome. Okay, so it's this holiday here, the Acuria occurred before the King's Flight, also known as the King's Flight, and the New Year, bridging the period of discord held immediately before the new moon. They prepared their way for reestablishment of order with a new month in the year. So, like, basically order, you know, out of chaos. Originally, the Acuria may have featured races on horseback, like the archaic festivals of the Consulia and the Taurian games, which were chariot races. So it all ties into the horses, right? Horse racing at the Campus Martius, which is Mars, with old and obscure festival. Okay, so it's all tying into Mars. So the archaic Mars has been imagined as the god of death and the underworld in the shape of a horse. Okay, so they're saying he's a horse. Mars is a horse and he's the shape of death. But, you know, Neptune is the god of horses as well. So, but it's all tied, this all ties into March 14th again, Pi Day. And what's weird, okay, they ended up having these coins, but with the chariots, there's two horses. So you get the eight-legged horse, which is, you know, Odin's Sleipnir, which I always said was the tail of the whale, which is like Citus is the horse, right? So this is all tying into March 14th, this whole festival with the horseback, you know, it's tying to Mars. Now, yeah, Romulus believes that Mars was his, you know, great grandfather or father or whatever, and that, you know, this is why Mars is part of the symbolism with Rome, how important it is. That's why they always want to go to Mars, right? Mars is the I am. He rules the cardinal cross on the side of the fire symbol on the cardinal cross, the sun pillar, okay, which is Mars. So the sun is represented by Mars. Okay, so that's, you know, the dominant male version of it. And the feminine version is the moon, and which is weird because in the tarot cards, the moon, you know, card is ruled by Pisces and Neptune, which I don't think is the good moon card. But then you have the Cancer card, which is a chariot. Okay, so you're getting pulled by horses again. So that's what I'm saying. It's like it's all linked. It's all linked to Pi Day. It's just amazing. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you can share my videos around, I know it's a lot of information. A lot of people can't absorb it, but you know, if you can just maybe flip it into some other videos so we can start to, you know, if you see somebody else that is working on some of this stuff and just flip my video in there, just, you know, I don't want to do that myself. I find that a little bit, you know, presumptuous to do that to other people's, you know, comments. But if you guys can do it for me, I appreciate it. And yeah, so, you know, my website's going to be up by the end of the month, and things will start to rock and roll, and I can start to, you know, go on some of these interviews on other channels. I wanted to wait till my website was up and my school was started before I did that. So I'm going to start to get probably really busy. So if you guys do want a reading, let me know before all that starts getting really crazy, because then things get nuts. So, but right now I'm you know, just working outside and enjoying the spring cleanup time. So, and have a little bit of time on my hands. So anyhow, take care, guys. Bliss to you all. Bye.